Here's the weed, give me the magic chocolate bread that's gonna get me high. What's up, stoners? Cewpins here, and on today's video, I'm gonna tell you about the first time that I ever took edibles. Now, I've taken edibles many times since then, and I have a few interesting stories about them, but I wanna tell you about the first time that I ever took edibles because it was probably one of the most interesting, and it's really a very memorable experience. So before we get too deep into the video, don't forget to hit that like button if you find yourself enjoying this story at any point, and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. You can get alerts when I drop new story times, and I don't post videos that often, so you won't get too many alerts. Also, drop a comment. Let me know what you're smoking on right now. If you got something to smoke for the video, I want to know about it. So this story happened several years ago. If you watched my first time dabbing story, it was probably a year, almost 2 years before my first time dabbing. So I would say at the time I'd probably been smoking a little over a year pretty regularly. Kind of got into the daily routine or whatever. I was mostly smoking out of a bong at the time, and that was how I got high. Well, one day I'm hanging out with a group of friends that I knew through my girlfriend, and there's a few of us that are all stoners, and somebody gets this idea like, hey, we should make edibles and maybe go to Busch Gardens or something, like make a trip of it. And at the time, Busch Gardens is like an hour away, so it was pretty easy to just drive an hour and go to the theme park, you know? So I didn't know how to make edibles. I didn't really know anything about edibles at the time. I had no idea what can of butter was or decarbing. I didn't know anything. They were just describing to me that you could put the weed in some cookies or brownies, and when you ate it, you got super high. So obviously I'm interested, right? It's gonna get me higher than when I smoke it, and it's gonna be like better and last longer. You know, you get the details about it. It takes a little bit longer to kick in, but you're gonna be so high for so long. So I'm stoked. I'm down, but I don't know how to make edibles or whatever. There's somebody in the group who had experience. I think they'd made a batch or two before, and they were talking about like, oh, I can do it. I just need to get the weed or whatever. We're all down. There's a few of us that all had flour on us or whatever, ready for the situation. I think we ended up like 4 people all threw down for this one batch. So there's like 4 different kinds of weed in it, and it was close to like a ½ ounce of flour for just like one batch of brownies, which I don't really know. It's hard to maybe calculate exactly how many milligrams I ate, but at the time I had such a low tolerance. This was before that tolerance got truly refined, and probably 50 milligrams would have put me on my ass, but I'm thinking I ate a little bit more than that. So we all throw down for this batch of brownies. We leave the weed with this girl. She's gonna make the brownies overnight, and we're just all gonna leave like first thing in the morning tomorrow once we all group up. So I leave the flour for this girl to make the brownies. We come back the next day. It's like a nice batch of brownies, you know, whatever, the 11 by 9 pan. It's a good batch of brownies. And I think there was 4 of us total that were interested in getting high. There was more of us that were going to the theme park, but not everybody was interested in doing the edibles or whatever. So I think we ended up cutting it into like 8 pieces total. There was enough for everybody to have 2 brownies, essentially. We just leave from there. We get the brownies. Our plan was to eat them in the car. It's like an hour drive to get to Busch Gardens. You know, edibles take 90 minutes, 2 hours. They could take up to 4 hours for some people to kick in. It's one of those kinds of things. So, I mean, I'm estimating each brownie was maybe like, I would say over 100, maybe like 150 milligrams each, just because we used like a ½ ounce for the whole batch. Like they were pretty potent. Like it was definitely more than enough for me at one time in one brownie, which I didn't know. It was just, here's the weed, give me the magic chocolate bread that's gonna get me high. So we all eat one on the way over. Like an hour had gone by. We're just pulling up. You know, it takes a little bit to park, and there's 2 people in the car that were already feeling it, right? The person that was driving was gonna wait until we got there to take one, and then we were gonna figure out who was gonna drive back or whatever. So the other 2 people in the car that weren't driving were already feeling it, and I was a little bummed. I'm like, what? You're already feeling it? I wasn't feeling anything. And I had it in my head. I think we talked about beforehand. Some people said it takes some people a little bit longer. Sometimes you might not feel it if you didn't have enough or whatever. So in my head, I'm like, I didn't eat enough. I didn't have enough. So I'm like, if you guys are already feeling it, I'm going to eat another brownie. So I eat another one like right away. And I wasn't convinced. So I had like checked with everybody in the group. Everybody wasn't going to eat their 2 brownies They were gonna like save it for later or whatever. So I talked somebody out of half of one of their brownies. So I ate 2.5. And some of the other people only ate 1. And I do this thing where I think I need more. I don't know, I'm taller than you. I don't know what it is, but I'm like, I'm way up here. I need more to get higher. So give me more. It's going to work out for me. I don't recommend anyone on their first time taking edibles to take edibles, wait an hour, and then take more edibles, because you're going to find out that shit kicks in twice for you. It's not recommended. I definitely wouldn't recommend it. So anyway, we're walking around the theme park. My edibles hadn't kicked in yet. I think I had gone on like maybe 2 rides before they'd actually kicked in. So we get off this ride, we're walking around. I'm thinking about like, let's go look at some animals. Let's go see some cool shit. Maybe they'll kick in like while I'm looking at cool shit, and I'll just, oh my God, dude. Yeah, I'm feeling it now. You know what I mean? So we're walking around, and while I'm walking, these edibles kick in. I'm looking down at the floor, and I could feel my whole body getting heavier. Like I'm watching my foot come off the ground and then go back on the ground, and then my other one will come off the ground and go back on the ground. And I'm like in my head at that point, like, how is this happening? It's just like a perfect rhythm of one foot, then the next foot, then the next foot, and they just keep going. And I'm like, I'm just walking, like watching my feet, amazed at how they're able to walk. I didn't get what I was looking at. It was just like my foot, my other foot, my other foot, my other foot. It was sinking in at the time. And then I realized that I was high from the edibles. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling it. So like, I'm realizing my legs are heavy, and I'm taking like bigger steps now, because it was just like a whole weird experience walking. And I'm like, oh no, they're gonna know I'm high, so I gotta walk normal now. I'm like in my own head for like a couple of minutes before anybody says anything to me, just like trying to manage my own walking. And then my friend's like, hey, I guess it kicked in. I don't know what I looked like. I felt like I was walking normal, but everybody I was with was able to discern by the way that I was walking that the edibles had kicked in for me. So we're going to say I look pretty silly. I don't know. So I'm feeling it. The edibles are kicking in. It's like kind of like a ramping experience. It was a little mild at first, but then I'm getting higher and higher. We're looking at animals. It's Busch Gardens. They got elephants and cheetahs and giraffes. They got a lot of cool stuff there. And I'm just walking around enjoying it and looking at it. Well, I think we've done that for maybe like an hour or so. We want to go on some more rides. And I'm standing in line for this ride. I don't know how to describe exactly what I felt, but I just knew that that second and a half brownie that I ate was kicking in. Like everything about me where I felt high, where it just like my whole body kind of felt heavy, it just got heavier. Like it's kind of weird to explain, but just like I'm chilling there in line. I know I'm high as fuck, and then boom, it hits me again, and now I'm just like, oh my God, dude. And we go on a roller coaster, right? It's crazy being like super duper high on a roller coaster, because like when you're all there, when you're sober, you know everything's gonna be, you know you're gonna be all right. It's just you're not feeling everything as much. When we're going up, you know, roller coasters do that climb where it's like click, 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 click before you get to the big drop or whatever. They gotta slowly pull you up that. It's like I'm strapped in, getting pulled up. Every click that I felt was just like more and more intense. Like my whole body was clicking every time the roller coaster clicked up. It had to click like 200 times in my mind, because I just remember like click, 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 click. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, how high are we going, dude? It wasn't that high. It's not that tall of a roller coaster. And I'm just like click, 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 going up. And at the top, you know, before it drops, it's like a moment of weightlessness, right? You go over the bend, and there's the different point of the roller coaster where I learned from an early age, you always want to sit on the back of the roller coaster because it experiences more speed more than time. So we're sitting in the back of the roller coaster. And this is true sometimes, because some of them will dip halfway down. Like the first cart will be halfway down the drop, and the back of it's still like at the top. So I remember like I'm still looking up. And we haven't dropped yet. The front of the car, whatever, they're looking down. I'm looking up, and there's just like this moment of like weightlessness or like no gravity when you kind of go over that hump really fast and you just that moment, that drop was like so intense. It felt like it took forever to climb to the top, but the moment between the roller coaster clicking to the top and it dropping just felt, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just like a long slow motion moment where like I'm looking left and right, and then boom, I'm back in reality, you know? So I'm high as hell. I don't know if going on this roller coaster made it hit even harder, but the edible kicked in before we got on the ride, and then after we got on the ride, I was already walking weird. I was having trouble like maintaining a normal walking. Like my steps are weird. I felt even weirder. Like everything's heavy. I'm like, am I doing it right? So we're all like talking about food, getting snacks. Somebody wants to get a beer, blah, blah, blah. We all just like kind of like break from there. There's just a few of us hanging out. I'm walking around with my girlfriend, and there's several of us at the park just like in our own spot doing our own thing. Look, a little bit of time goes by and we're like, hey, we should see if we can go find everybody and meet back up. But like, I'm super high. It's hard to get around and go A to B. I kind of just wanted to like sit and chill. The park has like this trolley or a shuttle or whatever that goes around. It's like a motorized vehicle that rolls around the park, and it has like 4 or 5 little train carts on it where you can just sit and you get dropped off. I think it makes a few stops around the park and you can just go to different parts really quickly instead of walking there. So I'm like, hey, let's get on this thing right here, and we'll just loop around the park, and if we see them, we'll get off and go, hey, there's our friends or whatever. So the trolley or whatever, we'll call it a trolley. The trolley that we're sitting on has the most uncomfortable seats. So we're sitting all the way back in the trolley, and the seats on this thing are so uncomfortable. It's like the part you sit on is like 1 foot wide, and it's a perfect right angle, goes straight up, and it's made out of like hard plastic. It's not designed for you to sit on it longer than a moment. Like they're just getting you to A to B and you're getting off. Well, we're sitting on this thing, and the plan was to just ride around the park and just do a few loops until we found it. We figured we'd see them at a certain point and we can get off at one of the stops and walk to them, or they'd be close enough to a stop. So we're sitting on this trolley, we're riding around, we do maybe a couple laps around the park. It's kind of a pretty quick thing. You can see the whole park pretty quickly on this. We're looking, we don't see anybody. We're like, all right, they'll turn up eventually. I don't know exactly how it happened or when it happened, but maybe an hour later, I don't know, just like an hour after we got on the trolley, I woke up from the most uncomfortable like sleeping position. I'm on the most uncomfortable chair. My ass is about to slip off the edge of it, right? It's like 1 foot wide, and my ass is like right on the edge. The back of my head is just like hitting on like the plastic part, not hitting, just like resting on the plastic part of the chair, and I'm just like about to slip off of the most uncomfortable seat in my life. Just resting my head. It's like, it's I wake up like from a bump or something, and I'm just like, I can feel myself almost like slipping off, and I adjust myself in the chair, and it's like, oh, my neck hurts, the back of my head hurts, my ass hurts, my tailbone hurts. What am I doing? We had figured out we were asleep on this trolley for like almost an hour, just rolling around the park for who knows how long, with just people passed out on the back. So I look over, my girlfriend's still asleep. I kind of nudge her on the leg and wake her up, and I'm like, I think we got to get off this thing. So it stopped a moment later. We get off. We're walking around still. I'm still pretty high, but if you ever take edibles and you have a little nap in there, or you sleep for a moment, you come down enough or a little bit to be a little bit more in control. So we end up finding our friends a moment later. They're still like eating. I don't even know. Like, I think we broke away an hour prior to go find food and stuff, but maybe the munchies were super strong and they just kept eating. Because I remember like finding them eating. We were just like, hey, where were you guys? And they're like, well, we were looking for you for a little while. We couldn't find you, so we got some more food. And we described our journey of just falling asleep on the train looking for them. And they were like, oh, that's kind of funny, because we talked about getting on the trolley and doing something similar, looking for you guys. But I guess they never got on the trolley or they would have found us. But it was like a really interesting time. I was so high. I fell asleep on like the most uncomfortable seat I'd ever sat on. It blows my mind to this day that I fell asleep on the trolley seat or whatever it was. So after that, we're all kind of coming down from the high. We were at the park for, I don't even know how long, a few hours. I think we left around the time it started to get dark. You kind of know when the sun's getting ready to go down, you don't want to drive back too late. So pretty memorable experience overall. I mean, I've done edibles many times, and like I said before, they don't quite hit like that first time or the first few times. It's just once your tolerance gets to a certain point, even the digested THC it doesn't really get you to these super high levels, I guess, unless you have a long tolerance break. But if you remember your first time taking edibles, if you have a cool story, drop a comment, let me know, or just tell me how you like this story. I'm thinking about doing more story time, so if you have any ideas, if you want to hear about my first time, this or that, maybe give me some suggestions. I have a little list I'm trying to go through of stories, but if you have any ideas, if there's something that you might want to hear about that I could put into a story, let me know. I think another one I'm going to tell soon is my first time doing edibles in Colorado, because like it's different when you bought them at the store and you got options and you're like, ooh, I want this, that, and the other. Well, I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you hanging out. And don't forget to check out my other social media. I'll have links in the description below. I post pictures of weed on my Instagram. We post funny stuff on Twitter and TikTok. And then I do live streams almost every night on Twitch. So follow my Twitch stream if you want to come and chill with me. I'm live almost every night, so it's a cool spot to come hang out. Bunch of stoners just chilling and smoking, and we really need you to show up and sesh with us, right? Anyway, appreciate you hanging out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, all that engagement stuff, blah, blah, blah. Peace out. Appreciate you hanging out with me, and have a super lit day, my dudes.